D'Angelo is a legend. I would say he's widely being forgotten in music culture. First, I'd like to clarify what I mean by forgotten and how we can estimate the collective memory of our culture using an example with the artist D'Angelo. To be forgotten, an artist has to have once been in collective memory of an audience at some point in time, right? People have to have at least acknowledged and known who he was to be able to say that they've been forgotten. If they've never been remembered in the first place, they can never be forgotten. Now, people know who D'Angelo is. He once had a #1 album. And with only 3 albums totaling in his career, that's already an accomplishment, let alone the 4 Grammys he won. 2 of his albums are certified platinum, so people are very well aware of who he is. But in modern context, statistically, D'Angelo would barely be considered above what's underground. Underground hip-hop artists like Che, Osama Sun, Nine Vicious are streaming over 1 million monthly listeners each, sometimes closer to 1.5 million monthly. D'Angelo has 4 Grammys and is only pulling 2.5 to 2.7 million monthlies. I know that's more than these underground artists, but by how much? You put 2 underground artists together, maybe make it an underground duo, and you're making more monthly streams between the 2 than someone who has 4 Grammys and a #1 album. How does that add up? In terms of search trends, which I was looking at, apart from anniversaries of albums and D'Angelo's unfortunate passing last November, D'Angelo has a very similar search relevance and the similar amount of people wanting to find out more about the artist as an underground artist like Osama Sun. Whether that speaks of D'Angelo's decline in popularity or whether that speaks to these underground artists' incline in popularity is up for debate. But the point is, someone as big as D'Angelo was should not even be close to these underground artists in anything. Let's break it down using De La Soul as an example. Contrary to D'Angelo, De La Soul has pretty sizable monthly listeners. Unfortunately, this is due to legacy features retroactively adding them as a credit onto songs, like when the Gorillaz added De La Soul's feature on Feel Good Inc., which is making up for over half of their monthly listeners, if not way more. For the majority of the streaming era, their digital catalog was non-existent, or at most, extremely limited. This was due to ongoing sample issues and disputes with their label and contract that lasted for well over a decade. De La Soul originated in the real roots of sample culture and East Coast hip hop and experimenting and really had a lot of fun with the production style that they were using at the time. But their contract problems made it really difficult to convert this into modern streaming platforms and essentially fall out of the mainstream public's memory for more than a decade. Old artists don't promote or optimize their art as much on streaming platforms as a younger artist or an artist that came up around a similar time to the streaming services themselves. And when you're having a contract dispute and you're not able to clear samples for streaming, even though the samples were often cleared completely okay for the physical releases in the original sense, makes that really difficult for an older artist. And average audiences aren't encouraged to go back and do their due diligence of understanding where a large portion of their current favorite artists might have drawn inspiration from, or what they would have been influenced from in the first place. And I've also noticed that a large barrier for a lot of people among my peers even is that music just being old is a barrier in itself. The fact that, something that hasn't come out in the 2000s can't be worth me listening to unless I already know it is something that listeners of a younger generation encounter quite often. They go, well, why would I bother listening to something from the 90s that I don't already know? Like, I know Michael Jackson, so I'll listen to some 80s Michael Jackson music, but I don't know original De La Soul, so why would I go back and listen to it if I don't know about it, it can't be that good. And I think, I mean, one, it's just ignorant, to be honest, but also, like, it's just sad to see that because of all these issues that they've had with modern streaming services and stuff like that and their contract deals, that an artist as good as De La Soul can just fall out of memory. And I went and saw De La Soul earlier this year, and when I went and told people, you know, oh, I'm seeing De La Soul and I'm seeing De La Soul, when I went to the festival thing that it was, and I said, oh, like, you know, I'm really excited to see De La Soul, I got shocked by how many people didn't know who De La Soul was or any of their songs or any of their music. And I think it's a really sad time and to experience, and it's a sad thing as a listener and a fan to go, this is what I'm about to go see, and people go, I don't know what that is. And it's not a curious I don't know, it's a I don't know and therefore I don't care. I mean, this is insane because all music will eventually become old, and it's just really hard to imagine a world where just because it hasn't existed in my timeline doesn't mean I should give it any thought. Who? And who? Name one song by Killer Mike was a comment that I witnessed on, I want to say 50 different Instagram posts at the time, just all over the place. Every single article that you read about any Grammys ever was name one Killer Mike song. And as a huge fan of every part of his work, all of his solo work, his Run the Jewels stuff, his Outkast features, everything, it really hurts as a fan, but also it makes me empathetic for an artist like Killer Mike to have that happen. And even though he might not care as much because, you know, I've just swept the Grammys, why would I care? It sucks to see as a fan because I don't want that to happen. I don't want to sit here and say I'm a fan of Killer Mike and everybody go, well, I don't know who that is and this guy sucks. Utopia should have won. I know I shouldn't hold any value on these comments, or these ones, or these ones, or this one, or that one. But of course, somewhere along the line you kind of do. This shit pissed me off every single day that I saw it, and it went on for ages. That's the worst part. It didn't just go on for a day, it went on for ages, maybe even months. Like, it went on for so unnecessarily long. Name one Killer Mike song. It was in comments of posts that were not related to Killer Mike at all. At all. And I understand if you're a Travis Scott fan and you're a new music listener, Travis didn't win with Astroworld and that album was so good and the Grammys just really just don't like him and this is just not fair and he's obviously got the best album, and I get it. Astroworld should have won, first of all. I understand that. I think that if I look at it retrospectively, I think that that's one of the best albums of 2018, if not the best album of 2018. I understand the argument there, and Cardi B sucked, so I get it. But as far as the 2024 Grammys, I don't know what to tell you. The Utopia was pretty good. Utopia was great. I actually loved it, but Killer Mike's Michael is technically so far and beyond anything that Utopia does, and I understand you might go, well, he's pushing the needle. You know, Travis Scott's pushing the needle. I think Killer Mike's pushing the needle just as much. I think Killer Mike's maybe not just pushing the needle, he's also perfecting something that's been going on for years. I think his lyricism is far and beyond anything Travis Scott has ever done. I think that Travis Scott is a great music creator and curator, but when it comes to lyrical ability, he's not there. He doesn't have it. Kind of like Kanye West. Kanye West's production and his ideas and his creativity are phenomenal. Lyrically, rapping, it's not that great. I would rather listen to Jay-Z or Pusha T. That's just how it is all the time. Maybe that's something I can get into in another video. I don't know. We'll talk about it another day. Now, regardless of this sidetrack that I've just went on about Killer Mike hate comments and trying to defend Killer Mike, you know, that's just something I feel like I needed to get off my chest. The fact is, Killer Mike is easily a legend, on paper at least, right? You know, when he's got a sweep at the Grammys, he's got a Run the Jewels song in a blockbuster movie with Baby Driver, And he's got cosigns and features from genuine GOATs like Kendrick Lamar and Andre 3000 of Outkast. It is a consistent thing to sit there and say, well, facts are there, Killer Mike statistically and on paper should be considered a legend and people should know who he is. Why not? Why are we encountering this issue where people are going, I don't know who that is, and name one Killer Mike song? I can name 20. But that's besides the point. However many songs I can name doesn't mean he is or isn't a legend. Just because you can't name a Killer Mike song doesn't mean people don't know who he is. Doesn't mean I'm getting sidetracked. Killer Mike on paper has been proving for 20 plus years why he deserves to be where he is and why he deserves to have a larger audience than he does. But we're encountering this problem where people don't know and so they don't care. Why is that? Oh, it's really echoey in here, isn't it? I love these artists and I hold a very large personal value to the art that they've created, the albums that I've spoken about today. And the internet has evolved into a very complex and diverse place with an abnormally large amount of negativity, negative noise, if you will. But art like D'Angelo's Voodoo will always supersede and come out on top when it comes to this negative noise, and it brings an overwhelming sense of community and community-like joy when I see other creators or other big artists and musicians shout out this art and these albums and these artists and bring attention to artists like the three that I spoke about, or even artists outside of this that are older or, you know, lesser respected and underappreciated. You know, I see James Blake shouting out D'Angelo's Voodoo in an interview for the premiere of The Odyssey. Just a random setting, a random question, and still the first thing that comes to an artist like James Blake is D'Angelo. Got it. That's the one I need to talk about right now, right here. You know, and it's a nice feeling as a fan to go, one, I'm a fan of James Blake, and two, I'm a fan of D'Angelo, to go, wow, an artist that I like is saying that they also appreciate and like another artist that I like, and that's heartwarming almost. I see different creators all the time shout out 3 Feet High and Rising when they're talking about classic albums or perfect albums or, you know, old school hip hop, and, you know, and they're making recommendations and saying on their content, hey, you should go listen to this artist because they're really good. And like, I personally have so much love and affinity for Killer Mike and the Run the Jewels stuff to the point where I almost think that he could not do any wrongs. But you see it all the time, and I think Killer Mike does a decent job himself, but if you're not following Killer Mike, you're not gonna see it as much. And I think having these conversations about these artists and about the negativity or the decline or the fall off or their death is a really powerful and important engagement tool to bring new artists into the conversation and bring new audiences into listening to different people. And I think that's really important for the genres. I think that's really important for music as a whole. I think that the reason that big artists stay big, or, you know, people like Michael Jackson stay relevant, because people have never stopped talking about Michael Jackson, and so he will always have new people going, well, they're always talking about Michael Jackson, so maybe I should go listen to it. But if we're not talking about these smaller artists or these artists who had bigger declines in relevance or popularity or importance, if we continue to talk about these people as music nerds or as people who are interested in this music, we can be the people to bring in new audiences and to bring new eyes and ears onto art in general that might not have gotten it. You know, I've introduced certain things to other people, by continuously saying, I like this person, I like this person, I like that person, and this album was great, and this album was great, and if you like this album, listen to this. It is so important to do, not just in a content sense like this, but just in general. Like, I think sharing our thoughts about art is what makes art the most powerful thing in the planet. I think that we, as a society and as a culture, can learn so much from each other. And I think the easiest way to do that, the fastest way to do that, and maybe the most effective way to do that is through art, is through music, but also film and also TV and other content and books and dances and architecture, and all these things come from an individual. And when we realize this and when we go, oh my God, an individual has done this, why should we just go, well, I don't need to talk about it. Like, if they don't want to listen to it, they don't want to listen to it. Sure, they might not want to listen to it, but the next guy might. You know, you might say to somebody, hey, you might really like an artist like D'Angelo, and you might say to your friend and you go, I think you'd really enjoy listening to Voodoo. And they go, I don't know who D'Angelo is, so I don't really care and whatever. And then you might get all beat up about it and be like, oh, yeah, you know, you're right. Maybe if he was a bit more important, maybe he would be more relevant. And then you almost get into a negative sense. And then it just becomes a big cesspool of negativity, and that's no fun for anybody. So, an important thing for everybody that's ever existed to do is to share your love for certain artists, or certain pieces of art and creations and creators to as many people as you can, or as many people as you want. Like, never stop. If you enjoy talking or discussing certain things, don't stop. And that's just in a broad sense, but within this specific issue, it is very important. I think that if you want to avoid it, continue to talk about it. I don't think that these artists will ever be forgotten because I'm talking about them here. And that's just, you know, if the next person does the same thing and the next person does the same thing, then any artist that you ever want to continue to be important in the world is always talked about by at least a couple people, then they will never be fully forgotten. The point is, maybe they aren't being forgotten. Maybe their audience has changed. Maybe their audience hasn't increased or grown up with them. Or maybe the people who talk about these legends are forced to change their lens and look and discuss things from a more artistic or creative or critical sense rather than a, this artist is good. Maybe you have to say, this is why this artist is good. Maybe you have to say, I love the bass lines in D'Angelo's music. I love the lyrics in Killer Mike's music. Or I really enjoy the chopped up samples or the fun, bouncy way that De La Soul raps. Maybe falling out of popularity like these legends might have, maybe that is bad for business. Maybe that's why labels don't care about pushing this stuff anymore, because it's bad for business. But falling into the conversations that music nerd culture and artsy conversations, maybe that's far more valuable to the art, the music, the creative process and the creativity. Maybe that's more important. Maybe the point isn't to be the best selling or the best artist musically or streaming wise. Maybe having the highest amount of streams isn't the most important thing. Maybe the reason why certain artists are undervalued or overvalued isn't necessarily true. Maybe the way that people hate on Killer Mike because they don't know who he is isn't as important. Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe what does matter is who's talking about them, how they're talking about them. Maybe if it's somebody who doesn't listen to their music saying, hey, I don't know who Killer Mike is, name one song, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe what does matter is who's talking about it and how they're talking about it. And you know, when it's somebody who has been a long-time fan, somebody who grew up with Killer Mike, somebody who listens to Killer Mike since well before Killer Mike was a known person well before Grammys, well before Run the Jewels, maybe someone who first heard a Killer Mike verse on Stankonia. Maybe that's what's important for his artistry and his music. Maybe people who say, oh, I have a De La Soul CD to their son, and then their son learns this music through one of their parents' old CDs. Maybe that's something that's really important for De La Soul's music. Maybe the fact that they aren't on streaming benefited them. Maybe the fact that nobody was talking about them benefited them, because when they came back, it was a whole group of these original fans who had been fans forever, regardless of streaming and regardless of their contracts, who went, De La Soul's now on streaming, we can go tell people to listen to them, and then they can just search it up. Because for a long time, it was hard to do. Maybe that's what's important here. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. If you watch this video, I appreciate you. I don't really have anything planned just yet. So if you've got things that you'd like me to talk about in the next one, whether it's music or, I'm interested in maybe branching out to film and TV and, fictional storylines as well and characters and all that sort of stuff, I think it's a dream of mine to continue to do this, and so I want to keep doing it, but I'm going to need things to talk about and things that maybe I find passionately interesting enough. So hopefully, you let me know, and I appreciate everybody for watching this. Hopefully I'll come back real soon, because I enjoyed making this video so far. Anyway, peace and love, guys.